you for joining me today, Sharon. I really appreciate your being here. This is the second webinar in a series about personal care products, and I met Sharon a couple years ago at a Talk About Curing Autism conference, and I was blown away with her expertise. I was blown away by, the information that she shared with me. And it's an area that I've always thought that I've used organic products, because I've been eating organic now for about 25 years. And to me, it made sense to use organic products as well. But when I met you, I realized that maybe my products weren't all organic. So Sharon, can you talk a little bit about yourself and how you got interested in this?
Sure, and I think your perspective on that is what a lot of people who are using organic products think. It's kind of like a shortcut to getting the safest products. But as you know, we've talked about why there's other things that you need to scrutinize on your labels. And I have a business background. I have an MBA in marketing from New York University. I've worked for a couple of very large consumer product companies. So I know, a little bit of how it works behind the scenes, and when a business is responsible to shareholders, and the types of conversations that happen behind closed doors about decisions that are made about whether or not to put a product on the shelf. But when my oldest son was a toddler, he was diagnosed on the autistic spectrum, and I learned that a lot of children on the spectrum have trouble detoxifying. Their detoxification pathways don't work quite as efficiently. So at the time, I did what I could to create a safe household for my son. I didn't make myself completely crazy, but I made my own cleaning supplies for a little while, and I switched to organic products. And then it wasn't until 2014, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, that this passion was ignited in me to create a truly safer world, not only for my family, but for all families and our children's children. Because manufacturers are never going to do it out of the goodness of their hearts because it's the right thing to do. But consumers talk with their dollars as well, and we really can make a difference in chemical policy in this country.
Great. And I wanted to share with you, when we did the last webinar, I had only been using a couple of the products. I'd only been using the toothpaste, and I used the hand cream a little bit. But since then, I started using the Monster spray, and my daughter's using it. And my daughter has always had difficulty getting to sleep. She tosses and turns. When she's asleep, she's fine, but it takes her like a half hour, 45 minutes to fall asleep. She went right to sleep last night. Yeah, and I totally attribute it to that she's now using this product. And I used it. I've been using it too, and I'm finding that I'm drifting off faster. I'm also using the shampoo, and my hair is so much softer. I mean, gray hair tends to not be very soft.
Right.
I'm like 90%.
Yeah, it looks great.
And, I need a haircut, but, it's so much softer. It's amazing. And I've been using Trader Joe's brand for years, because I always felt like you look at the ingredient list and it looks fine, but I don't know what's in this shampoo, but it's incredible. The hand and body lotion, my daughter was complaining that my skin was so rough. Like, she didn't even want to touch my hand because my hands were so rough. And she's noticing a difference in how smooth my hands are. As I mentioned, I'm doing the toothpaste, and I feel like there's something else, but I just can't remember right now.
Well, we'll have time to chat again about products at the end, so make a note.
Okay.
Yes, but what you have said resonates strongly with me. I don't have quite as much gray as you, but I do have some gray, and I've been using Pure Haven products for quite some time now, and my hairdresser comments that she can't believe how sort of tame my gray hairs are, because typically they're a little wiry and do what they want. So I can relate to what you're saying. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, are you ready for me to start the presentation?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to start screen sharing now. And okay, are you seeing the presentation title page?
Yes.
Okay, great. So decoding personal care product labels, unveiling carcinogens and neurotoxins. Those are big, scary words, but I'm going to break it down for everybody. And again, this is the second in a series. And it was last month we did the first presentation where I went into a little bit more detail about the overview of the cosmetics industry and how these products could be contributing to health issues. So I'm going to go through some of that information quickly this time so that everybody's sort of on the same page. So looking at how we define this product category that I'm talking about, for purposes of the presentation, as well as how the FDA looks at this product category. We're talking about cosmetics, which are defined as products intended to cleanse or beautify. So we're talking about things like makeup, shampoo, deodorant, moisturizer. This would exclude any products that are intended to treat or prevent a medical condition. For example, antiperspirant prevents sweating, so that's considered a drug. If you look on your antiperspirant, there is a drug facts label on there. Dandruff shampoo, diaper cream, and sunscreen are similar products in what looks like it might be personal care, but is truly considered a drug by the FDA. Now, looking at the cosmetics industry, the FDA supports but does not regulate. There are only 2 applicable laws that have not been updated since 1967, which was about 50 years ago. And in that time, there has been, a proliferation of products that are out there and new chemicals that haven't been in place for, for those same 50 years. So the laws are a little bit dated. The cosmetics industry does police itself through what's called the Cosmetics Ingredient Review Board, which was established in 1976. It is funded entirely by industry. A member of the FDA does sit on the board, but that person from the FDA is not a voting member when ingredients come up to be voted upon. And in the 40 or so years that the review board has been around, in the US, they've banned only 11 ingredients from personal care products. But if you look at the European Union, they have banned over 1,300 ingredients from personal care products. So how do these products affect our health? You may know that our skin is our largest organ, and what you put on your skin is absorbed into your body. A Dr. Samuel Epstein, who's the former head of the Cancer Prevention Coalition, has said it's more dangerous to put a product on your skin than it is to eat it. And that is because what you eat, your digestive system is designed to detoxify, whereas your skin does not offer that same benefit. So depending upon molecular weight or particle size, some substances are in your bloodstream in as quick as 26 seconds. The average woman is exposed to 168 chemicals before she even leaves the house in the morning. And this is research by the Environmental Working Group, which is a great nonprofit to follow for information on this topic. And men are not immune, but I'm sure we can all agree that women do tend to use more products than men. And then looking at chronic illness and developmental problems, it's kind of not a surprise that we're seeing such an increase in conditions like autism and cancer and Alzheimer's. And I can't tell you that this is solely because of consumer products, but it's a contributing factor for sure. And we all have a body burden. We're actually born with a body burden of chemicals. The Environmental Working Group also found that babies' cord blood was contaminated with up to 200 chemicals. So our babies are being born pre-polluted. So it's really time to start thinking about what we can do to lower our body burden of harmful chemicals so that we can live a healthier life. Okay, so knowing what's safe can be very overwhelming. I'm going to go through 2 major categories today, carcinogens and neurotoxins. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on carcinogens. So a lot of what I'm going to share about carcinogens, not the ingredients, but the introduction to talking about specific ingredients, is information that you can readily find on the American Cancer Society website. And I'm guessing that most people listening are pretty well aware of what a carcinogen is. It's defined as any substance that's capable of causing cancer in living tissue. Cancer is caused by changes in a cell's DNA, and that's that cell's genetic blueprint. And damage to DNA interferes with something that's called apoptosis, which is natural cell death. So the cells in your body are constantly being replaced with new cells. There's this natural sort of life cycle of your cells. But in cancer, these dysfunctional cells, or cells that are not useful anymore, don't die. They continue to accumulate, and this is what causes the growth of malignant tumors. The American Cancer Society identifies 6 potential sources of carcinogens, some of which are easier to avoid than others. There's lifestyle factors. Sorry about that, silence my phone. There's lifestyle factors from your diet, whether or not you smoke, if you drink, and how much you drink. There's naturally occurring exposures like UV light from the sun, radon gas, which comes from the earth, and even pathogens. A good example is H. pylori, which can contribute to stomach ulcers and then ultimately stomach cancer. And then there's medical treatments. Any medical treatment or medicine is going to have associated risks, and you always need to have that informed consent about weighing those risks versus the benefits. And there are times where you're going to need medical radiation. So, for example, if you break your leg, you're going to need an X-ray. There's hormone drugs that are considered carcinogens, and chemotherapy, ironically enough, you treat cancer with a carcinogenic substance. And then there's workplace exposures. Think about miners or factory workers, or even women working in a nail salon. They're exposed to harmful chemicals on a daily basis. Sometimes you see now women in nail salons wearing masks over their faces to protect themselves from some of that constant exposure. Then there's household products, which would include, of course, cleaning supplies and personal care products, and then pollution. So, some of these are very easy for some people to avoid, and some of them might be more difficult to avoid. But today we're focusing on a portion of the household products. So the American Cancer Society relies on 2 organizations for information about carcinogens. There is the International Agency for Research on Cancer, which is a part of the World Health Organization. And they have developed and maintain a widely used classification system that has 5 groups. It puts substances into 5 different groups, ranging from definitely carcinogenic to probably not carcinogenic. And they have evaluated over 900 substances over the past 30 years. So that's the IARC. Now, the National Toxicology Program is a project of the National Institutes of Health, the CDC, and the FDA, sort of this trifecta of government health agencies. And they release a report on carcinogens, which is updated every few years. And they only have 2 categories of substances, and they identify substances that are known to be human carcinogens and those that are reasonably anticipated to be human carcinogens. So alphabetical listings from these 2 groups can be found at www.cancer.org. If you want to go in there and take a look, it's a lot of information. But some important facts to keep in mind whether or not you take a look at those long lists. The 2 groups, IARC and NTP, they act independently of each other. And then note that many substances on those lists go by more than one name, which makes it really difficult to, make sure you know that you're avoiding carcinogens if this is something that you're really passionate about doing. And then finally, inclusion on these lists is based on the level of evidence versus a likelihood of causing cancer. So, for example, smoking, we know smoking is much more likely to cause cancer than eating processed meats, although those are both risk factors. And the American Cancer Society also cautions that even if a substance or exposure is known or suspected to cause cancer, this doesn't necessarily mean that it can or should be avoided at all costs. Okay, so I'm going to talk first about common carcinogens in cosmetics that you can see on the label. They're listed in the ingredient listings. One is called retinol palmitate, which is a synthetic vitamin A. It's found in many sunscreens and moisturizers. Actually, the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics identified 120 sunscreens that contain retinol palmitate, 70 moisturizers with SPF, and 14 lip products. So these are leave-on products on your face, and the National Toxicology Program found that retinol palmitate can enhance skin cancer lesions by 20% in the presence of sunlight. It's mind-boggling to me. I'm not sure what the feedback loop needs to be, but there is no reason for retinol palmitate to be in a face product.
Is that common knowledge?
I'm sorry?
Is that common knowledge?
It is not common knowledge. You can look it up. National Toxicology Program, retinol palmitate. It's cited in the Environmental Working Group website and the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics. So I don't, like I said, I don't know if there's a feedback mechanism. So when a program like the National Toxicology Program identifies this risk with using this ingredient, like how does that get back to the companies that are using it and they get a chance to reformulate or decide to justify leaving it in there? I don't think that there's communication in place that helps things like that to happen. And it really is our job as consumers to protect ourselves. And that's why we're doing this today, right? Because we want people to know.
Right, but the thing that I want to bring up is that people put, they've had skin cancer, will put these products on their face to not get a recurring, skin cancer lesion.
Yes. Yeah. I know. Sunscreen contains lots of nasty chemicals. So maybe we can talk about that in a future webinar, because it really doesn't make sense to me, especially when you consider that your body needs vitamin D, right? We don't need to be blocking every ray of the sun, but there is a sincere concern there with people who have experience in skincare. And I'm not a doctor and I don't know all the answers. And it's definitely a tricky topic. But for most of us to be able to look at the label and see if there's retinol palmitate in there and then put it back on the shelf and find a product that doesn't contain that is, just something to look out for. And of course, we've talked about Pure Haven Essentials, and some of these ingredients that I'm reviewing would never be put into a product with the Pure Haven label. So moving on to two other ones that you will see on labels. Isobutane is a propellant that's used in aerosol hairsprays and gels, mousses, shaving cream, and body sprays. And isobutane can be contaminated. I'm going to talk about what that means on the next slide. But with this substance a chemical called 1,4-butadiene, which is a group 1 known carcinogen. So if anybody out there has, teenage boys using things like Axe or spraying, I don't even know if Aquanet is around anymore, but these are propellants, and there's something that you want to make sure you're not exposing yourself to a group 1 known carcinogen, not even a maybe, a known. And then talc. Talc is made, baby powder. Many baby powders are made up of talc. Now, some companies do offer an alternative of cornstarch or something else that's not talc, but you do see it still in baby powders today, as well as in some makeups, some powdered makeups. And talc belongs to the asbestos family. And you may have seen, if you're a social media person, there's been a lot recently about ovarian cancer being traced back to talc. And Johnson & Johnson has actually paid out a couple of very large settlements to women who used talc regularly in their genital areas, and then they later developed ovarian cancer. And Johnson & Johnson knew that risk was there, but didn't do anything about it. It's also dangerous to inhale, so you want to make sure that you're not using talc, sprinkling it somewhere where you can inhale it, or using makeup products that are maybe like a powder with a brush where you could be inhaling it as you're using the product. Okay, now there's a couple of tricky things to keep in mind when you're thinking about carcinogens. They're not always listed on the label. And that's because manufacturers are only required to list the actual ingredients that they use to make the product. Chemical reactions can happen inside a bottle when ingredients are mixed, and they may be even able to test for it and know that it's in there, but it's not required to be listed on the label, because the labeling laws only require that ingredients that were used to make the product are on the label. And there's two big concerns. There's contamination, and then there's formaldehyde releasers, which just happens when there's these chemical reactions. So some of the contamination concerns are with ingredients that are very commonly used, that many of you listening will probably recognize these names. Any petroleum jelly type product that goes by many names: petroleum jelly, mineral oil. These can be contaminated with polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which have been shown to cause reproductive problems in mice and can harm the skin, bodily fluids, even your immune system. And they're used in moisturizing type products, but what they really do is create a barrier on the skin, so they're not truly nourishing your skin. And then there's sodium lauryl sulfate and sodium laureth sulfate, which could be contaminated with nitrosamines, which are one of the most potent families of animal carcinogens. And what's really interesting is that we know that sodium lauryl sulfate, these are used as foaming agents. They create a lot of lather. They're used in toothpaste and shampoos and hand soaps. And sodium lauryl sulfate is known to be a harsh chemical. So there's this chemical process that they can do to change it from sodium lauryl sulfate to sodium laureth sulfate to make it a more gentle product. But when they do that process is when you're introducing these contamination because of chemicals that are used in order to create that change from lauryl to laureth. So I hope that makes sense. And then there's PEGs, which is polyethylene glycols, and also any chemical that you look on the ingredient listing that ends in an F, cetereth or tritereth, sorry, liberal arts major, can be contaminated with something called 1,4-dioxane. And 1,4-dioxane is a carcinogen. And then isobutane, which I talked about before, is also contaminated with that known human carcinogen, 1,3-butadiene. PEGs are often followed by a number, and the number indicates the molecular weight. I'm sorry, I think I have this on another slide as well, so I might be repeating myself in a minute, but it has to do with how readily that substance is going to be absorbed into your body, and then it can sort of carry other ingredients with it as it goes into your skin. So a high number, like a double digit or closer to 100 or over 100, is something that's not going to penetrate your skin as readily. But if you see lower numbers, particularly single digit, you know that that product has been designed to penetrate the skin. Okay, so those are the contamination concerns, and then the formaldehyde releasers are when those chemical reactions can happen. And some ingredients that you'll want to keep an eye out for are listed here. Again, I have a really hard time pronouncing some of these, but you can take a screenshot or write them down, whatever. We can maybe follow up with some of these in when we post the replay. But these ingredients that release formaldehyde can cause allergic reactions, they can cause headaches, immune dysfunction, asthma, menstrual disorders, and even joint pain. And a great example of what consumers can do is in 2014, consumers had been pressuring Johnson & Johnson to remove quaternium from their baby shampoo. And even when they did this, they said, well, we don't think that this is really any health issue. There's not enough formaldehyde. They admit it's a formaldehyde releaser, but they say there's not enough for it to make a difference, to be a true health concern. And I think that that's the thought process for a lot of people working with these chemicals and making these products. But when we look at all of our exposures to chemicals, we're bombarded daily with harmful chemicals all around us, many of which we can't avoid. So does it really make sense to put even a tiny amount on our most precious, resources, our babies? It really doesn't make sense to have any formaldehyde containing ingredient in those products.
Well, and I also want to comment, formaldehyde is what they used to embalm dead people with. So formaldehyde's, it is toxic to the body. But also, you think of these people that have chronic headaches or joint pain, asthma, immune disorders, and they've gone through the process of maybe eating organic and doing detoxifications and cleanses, but yet they still have these problems that persist. Maybe it is their personal care products.
Right. Yep, and an analogy I like to use is, if you're sitting on 3 tacks and you take 1 or 2 away, it's still going to hurt.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Okay, so moving on. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I did cover some of this already. I talked about better living through chemistry and what the companies that use these ingredients are thinking that, they're, and I'm speculating here, but we're making a product work better. So those polyethylene glycols that I mentioned with the 1,4-dioxane, they're used as emulsifiers. So what they do is they help ingredients that are mixed together stay together so it can prevent clumping in your products. And again, the issue with the molecular weight. So, is it better living through chemistry? Is it really worth it? Is the benefit we get from, not having to shake a bottle, for example, worth the risk? I don't think that it is. And it's why you sometimes see in natural products why you don't always have the exact same consistency, because they could be affected a little bit more by temperature or by changes in like time of year that an ingredient was harvested, if it's like an essential oil or something like that. And again, sodium lauryl and lauryl sulfate that's used to create a lather, there's often a warning on the like shampoo bottle to avoid contact with damaged skin. But who's really doing that? You have an abrasion on your arm and you take a shower, you don't think about avoiding sodium lauryl sulfate when you've got some kind of an abrasion. You're probably thinking, I want to get this clean. And if you look at bubble bath for kids, sodium lauryl sulfate is classified as a drug in bubble bath because it eats away at skin protection and can cause rashes and infection. It's also harmful to the eyes. In adults, it can cause cataracts, and in children, it can create developmental vision problems. And we talked about toothpaste too. So sodium lauryl sulfate, and these companies have kind of made us think that we need lather to do cleaning, but we really don't. Surfactants don't need to lather in order to get you clean. But in toothpaste, sodium lauryl sulfate can irritate the gums. So what I hear from a lot of people is when I switched to a toothpaste that was natural and didn't contain sodium lauryl sulfate, my gums stopped bleeding when I flossed my teeth, or I stopped feeling like I needed a sensitive teeth toothpaste. Which, by the way, those products are sort of a Band-Aid on a problem. They're not removing the source because they typically contain sodium lauryl sulfate as well. I'm sure there's other things that contribute to gums being irritated, but you don't really need SLS to be in your mouth. There is evidence of long-term retention in tissue of the brain, heart, and liver. Okay, so we're going to move on to neurotoxins. It sounds kind of scary, but neurotoxins are any substance that inhibit the function of neurons. And neurons are found in your brain and your nervous system and are critical for a wide range of tasks, from anything like swallowing or tasks in your body that are related to your autonomic nervous system, as well as higher level brain function. And some common examples of neurotoxins that you're probably familiar with to one degree or another are lead, ethanol, botulism, and tetanus. And it's important to note that some neurotoxins are essential for proper human function, but are toxic at excessive concentrations. And some examples are nitric oxide and glutamate, as well as in people that have genetic defects that make some of these chemical reactions in the body a little bit difficult to happen. There's something interfering with the ability of the body to detox certain chemicals in the body. Chemicals even that are supposed to be in the body. So some of those examples are the nitric oxide and the glutamate, that a little bit of natural of those substances is okay, but when you are exposed to excessive amounts, you can create neurological type problems. I'm going to cover two neurotoxins. The first one is aluminum. When I do my live events, I always ask, what do you think is the worst offender, or what do you think is the active ingredient in antiperspirant? Did you know that the active ingredient in an antiperspirant is aluminum? If you look at the back of a antiperspirant bottle container, you'll see a drug facts label because it is an antiperspirant, which is considered a medical condition. But it also cautions consumers to ask a doctor before use if you have kidney disease. The aluminum in antiperspirant can come in a bunch of different forms. I've listed the names there. And the way it works is by preventing or blocking sweat from reaching the surface of the skin, thus reducing the undesired perspiration. And a couple things there, what can happen with those ducts being blocked is that bacteria can grow in there, and that can create odor. It's not the only thing that creates odor. I understand that diet can impact body odor as well, and everybody's body chemistry is a little bit different. but bacteria growing in your sweat ducts can create an odor. And to that point, sometimes people who are switching from a conventional product to a natural deodorant sometimes have a little bit of a detox period where all that's flushing out of the body. And you can Google armpit detox or send me an email. I have a recipe that I'm happy to share with anybody. But it's also important to keep in mind that our bodies are meant to sweat. It is how we cool off. It's partially how we detoxify. And, our armpits, women in particular, our lymph nodes are there. And breast cancer is typically diagnosed in the upper outer quadrant closest to the armpit. So your lymph nodes are there. And it's not just aluminum in those conventional antiperspirants. There's fragrance, which we covered in the previous webinar, with lots of unknowns in there. There's parabens often that are used as a preservative. So it's a lot of harmful chemicals. And especially if you're shaving and then applying, you are encouraging all of those chemicals to go directly into your bloodstream and potentially your lymph nodes. And then fluoride. Fluoride exposure comes in several forms. In your toothpaste that you use daily, dental treatments, typically, I know they will paint it on little kids' teeth at the 6-month visits. And it's also added to public water in many communities and can even be present in bottled drinking water. In 2014, I believe it's the world's largest medical journal, The Lancet, identified fluoride as a neurotoxin. There's a lot of controversy behind this topic, and at the local community level, there's often a lot of noise around a community deciding to put fluoride in or wanting to take it out. It's interesting to note that many industrialized nations ban the practice of adding fluoride to public drinking water, and they've listed all the countries that don't allow it. With regard to, it's ingrained that fluoride prevents cavities. I can tell you that my family sees a holistic dentist, and he doesn't use fluoride anywhere in his practice at all. He approves us using a fluoride-free toothpaste, and there's many things that can contribute to cavities. So I really, as passionate as I am about avoiding fluoride, I really encourage people to do their own research, and I want you to be comfortable with the decision to use a fluoride-free toothpaste, because so you could still get a cavity. It's not necessarily because you're not using fluoride, but I feel that that's an important decision for individuals to make for themselves and for their family.
And Sharon, fluoride can also contribute to kidney disease as well. So they will tell you if you're getting any sort of kidney treatments not to use fluoride. So there is a connection there with kidney disease.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you. Okay, so this information is overwhelming, right? You go to the store, you pick up a bottle, and you're going to see these words that I've educated you about. What can you do? I do encourage you to always read your product labels. Be informed. Like my Facebook page, which is Non-Toxic News from Sharon, like Nancy's page, Embody Health and Wellness. We share tons of information on these and related issues. And then, of course, vote with your dollars. I referred to this earlier. Let manufacturers know that it's not okay to use harmful chemicals, and you can tell them, but they're really not going to start listening until it hits the bottom line and their sales numbers decline. And it is possible to make a difference based on voting with your dollars. Nancy talked about some of the products in the Pure Haven Essentials line. The products are truly the safest, cleanest, most effective products. And if you shop using this link here, purehaven.com/mbodyhealth without the E in the front of embody, proceeds of every purchase made through that link will support Nancy's initiatives to provide wellness information through her webinars. And just a little more information about shopping this link over the next couple of weeks. When you shop, if you enter event number 167094 through October 30th, you will receive a free gift from me in the mail, a non-toxic lip balm and an educational flyer that you can keep with you when you're shopping. And then on an everyday basis, every purchase of $95 or more automatically qualifies for a free item. This month of October, it is a holiday hand spice, which smells amazing. And this, like I said, will be automatically added to your order. Every month it's a different item. And then better yet, if you're interested in making a major change, consider sampling $300 worth of product from the line for just $99 plus shipping and tax. I encourage you to give me a call or shoot me an email for information. I'll send you some details as well as how we can get those products into your hands. So thanks so much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Sharon. So I did the $100, $99 for $300 worth of product a couple months ago. And the reason, I have to tell you, honestly, the reason why I bought it is because I trust Sharon implicitly. I've known her for a couple of years now. And, I didn't feel like I was being sold, goods. So, to me, it felt like very authentic. And, Sharon has a lot of integrity. And to me, that's important for me to work with people that I respect and who really know their stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been using the toothpaste, the Monster Spray, the hand and body lotion, the shampoo, and I've really felt a difference, not only as far as how my hair feels, but I don't feel like there's this slime, afterwards. I feel like the products are really good. I use the toothpaste. My daughter uses the toothpaste. The Monster Spray helps me get to sleep at night a little faster, and I sleep much deeper. So I'm a huge fan of the products. I'm not one that, I feel a little awkward selling products, but I am doing a lot of work to bring a lot of great information out to the public. And it's something I believe in. It's a product line that I believe in. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been eating organic for 25 years. Why should I not use products on my skin, the largest organ in the body? Why should I not also be using organic products? So I thought I was using organic products, but Sharon, you showed me differently.
Yeah, and I appreciate your kind words, Nancy. I do a lot of these presentations where I'm not even talking about the product line. I just think that people need to know this information because there's too much illness out there, and like I said, we can make a difference.
Yeah, and hopefully through this webinar today, people will start reading their ingredient labels. Whether they buy Pure Haven or use another company, make sure you know what you're buying. And if you haven't seen the last webinar, I also urge you to do that as well, because the last webinar we talked about fragrance and things like that. So,
Nancy, I wanted to show something real quick. I don't know how to work the screen so that people can see me again. Can people see me?
No, you got to hit the green button.
Okay. Okay. So when I do my live events, I bring this with me. It's my basket of death, which always, people laugh when they see it, but I found that people would listen to the information that I share, be completely shocked and want to make a change, but they often still would go home thinking, well, my products are safe. Like, for example, maybe my dermatologist recommended it, or where I bought it, I think would be safe. I bought it at the health food store. So what I did was I created a basket of products and I put the questionable ingredients, some of them are not questionable, they're just downright bad, on the front of the label. So this one, I should probably, cover the brand name. But I don't know if you can see that. Cetaphil is a very short ingredient listing, which is kind of nice. However, it's got 3 different kinds of parabens in there, and parabens are endocrine disruptors that mimic hormones in the body. And then for some, categories that we talked about already, the deodorant, again, it's not just the aluminum, it's fragrance, it's polyethylene, the aluminum, it's all sorts of nasty stuff going on in there. And then toothpaste, again, this is a more natural brand that people think they're doing a good job when they use this, but it does contain fluoride and it does contain sodium lauryl sulfate. So that's kind of questionable there as well. And I like to show these, not necessarily to pick on these specific brands, but because it it's that pervasive of a problem. It's not just one company or one product. It's really across the board.
That last product that you showed, aren't they, they're owned now by a bigger company, but you would not necessarily know that.
Yeah.
Because they still have their old name on it, and they're old. When I think when they were the original, before they were bought out, I think they had, I don't know this for a fact, but my guess is they had a better, cleaner ingredient list. But then when they got bought out by this larger, huge corporation, I think they probably messed around with the ingredients. And I don't know that for a fact, but do you?
I don't know that for a fact, but I can tell you that not only the sodium lauryl sulfate, but I don't know if you can see that there's carrageenan in this product. And carrageenan is naturally derived. It's from seaweed, but there's strong evidence that suggests that it causes inflammation. And if you're talking especially about, like, if you are using this for your kids who maybe have special needs or are sensitive to toxins, or they have, you know, oral motor issues. Like, my son is 11 and he still cannot effectively spit out toothpaste, so he's ingesting it. And he's a gut kid, and I don't want carrageenan in his body. The carrageenan is also in a lot of the non-dairy milk substitutes. And there are some companies that are doing a great job of hearing that and taking it out. Like So Delicious has done a great job of getting those, you know, getting their products with that, getting that out of the product. So, and sometimes you do notice it in quality and sometimes you don't. But again, you weigh the risks and the benefits and make your own choice.
Well, and I don't mean to pick on that company, but I'm going to say that when they got bought out, all of a sudden they went from having all these products that didn't have fluoride to most that have fluoride, and you have to really look at the labels. And honestly, until we got this, the Pure Haven Essentials toothpaste, I was using that particular brand. So that, because I always felt like they had the best, the cleanest products, I mean, ingredient list. So, and I knew to buy the brand that did not have, the item that did not have fluoride. But, again, I'm doing natural health. I've been doing it for a long time, and I didn't know this stuff. So how is the average person going to know all the toxic crap in their personal care products?
I want to show one more product, and that's the deodorant stick from Pure Haven Essentials. There are people who have been trying natural deodorants and they can't find the one that they like or that works. And I hear people who have tried other ones before are very, very happy. They're like, oh, I finally found one that really works. A lot of times the pricing is very similar with natural products, and in some categories it's very different. This product is $13.95, which is expensive for a deodorant. However, if you like 3 Starbucks coffees in a week would pay for this instead, right? So it's like, where do you decide to put the money? Do you decide to put the money in your high-end coffee or in a product that's going to keep you safe and last for a good 6 months?
Well, so Starbucks uses GMOs in their products, so you probably really don't want to buy coffee at Starbucks anyway. But, again, talking about aluminum, you mentioned, certain problems with aluminum, like it can cause kidney problems, but also aluminum goes to the brain. They have found aluminum in the brains of people that had died from Alzheimer's. So, the aluminum is just, I remember years ago, maybe 20 years ago, they told people to stop cooking with aluminum pans. Mm-hmm. But they still put aluminum in other products that are definitely toxic to the brain. So I wanted to, mention that as well.
Yeah, great point. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Well, I can't see them because I'm not in that mode, the moderator mode. I can't get it back again. So I apologize. If you have any questions, let me put it in. I'm going to put it in chat mode here. Feel free to email me at this email address. And then the other thing is you can always go to Embody Health and Wellness on Facebook and post a question there. We will be putting this event, this YouTube video up on that page so you can share it with your friends. And I urge you to share this information with your friends. yes, if you decide to buy Pure Haven products, fantastic. I love them. Sharon loves them, and she has a lot of other people that love them. But if you do nothing else but read the ingredients and make sure you're making better choices when you go to the store, even big organic supermarkets, you know, just because they're carrying products in their supermarkets doesn't mean they're organic.
Right. Very good.
So, anyway, thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Sharon, for sharing this great information.
My pleasure.
And we'll have another one in another 3 to 4 weeks. So make sure you catch that one too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.